being conducted in West Orange, New Jersey, United States of America. Good morning, Ruth. I'd like to ask you to spell your name, your full name.
Morning, Barbara. Welcome. My name is Ruth Meyrowitz, Meyrowitz. Okay.
And what was your name at birth?
Krautwirth, Krautwirth.
And your present age and your birth date?
I'm 66. My birth date is June 23rd, 1929.
And where were you born?
In Frankfurt, Germany.
Okay. This is tape number 3.
Should I continue about Auschwitz? When we arrived there, we realized that a lot of the girls from Greece, from Salonika mainly, were now in Auschwitz. Salonika had a Sephardic community, and most of the people could trace their ancestry back to the expulsion from Spain in 1492, and then the subsequent expulsions from Portugal. And they lived in the city that was practically all Jewish and was sort of an enclave for this particular group of Jews. They were all Sephardic, as I said, and very few Ashkenazic Jews were in that city. Many of the men, when the Nazis invaded, had joined the partisans and had the Maquis, I think they were called, and they had joined them, and they were fighting in the hills, and were either survived or were killed fighting. Some of the people had relatives in Turkey and were able to escape. Most of them stayed in Salonika. We didn't even realize that people from Salonika that far south, and later on I even met people who were taken from Rhodes. I never realized how close to Palestine, Israel, the Nazis had been from that particular end, even though they were approaching from Africa also. So there were Jews taken away and decimated in Auschwitz.
Were you put with the girls from Salonika?
Yes,
you were friendly
we were put
with them?
into the barracks with the girls from Auschwitz, from Salonika. So anyway,
you were separated from your mother?
No, my mother, my brother, and I were taken into a barracks, and I forgot the barracks the numbers. I think our first stop was in the A camp. Later on, we were taken to the B camp, and I think barracks 27, but I don't remember the numbers. I had typhus while I was in Auschwitz. And my mother nursed me through this. I mean, there was a very, very small survival rate, and the terrible conditions and the lack of medicine, lack of sanitary conditions, lack of food was just awful. I mean, it decimated people.
At what point did you get sick in the camp?
In the summer of 1943, and because of that, I have very little memory of all those times. But anyway, I would like to tell you about my friend Nini Benmaghior, who was in Auschwitz.
Can you repeat her name?
Nini Benmaghior. Benmaghior would probably translate to Meyerson or McMyer in Irish and Scotch. But Nini, I met her almost the first day. She was a little bit older than I, and she was there with a younger sister. She was studying to be a singer, and she would entertain as long as her strength permitted and as long as her will was able to. She would sing for us, and it was very strange. One of the songs in her repertoire was Schubert's Ave Maria, Schubert Gounod Ave Maria. Later on, years later, when I went to Catholic weddings and I heard Ave Maria sung, I would sit and cry. And people would say, look at this Jewish woman being touched by Ave Maria. They didn't realize that it meant to me a memory of a friend that was lost. Nini's sister died of typhus in the summer of 1943. And she lost a lot of, all the starch went out of her when her sister died. She had told us that her mother was left behind when they left, and she assumed that her mother was still in Salonika. Subsequently, I found out that her mother was just taken away a few days afterwards and never got into the camp because she was already probably an aged lady of maybe 40 or 45 or something like that. So her mother, so I became friends with Nini. The girls from Salonika were very talented. They're multilingual. Most of them had very good voices, not as good as Nini, but for non-professional, very good voices. They did a lot of dancing, and they were very, really talented people, very nice people. But the Germans did not permit anyone to speak English because they had prisoners from France, so they realized people would speak French, or they had, of course, Yiddish-speaking and German-speaking. English, they didn't have any English-speaking prisoners, so they didn't permit English to be spoken. Now, my French isn't as good as wasn't as good at the time and isn't as good as my English was at the time, because I started speaking English in school. I think the second year that we started school, which was when I was about 8 years old. And Nini also spoke English. And of course it was forbidden to speak it, and that was very attractive to us, and we spoke English most of the time. I should have spoken French because she spoke French fluently and my French wasn't good, but I should have done that. Anyway, Nini and I remained friends as much as you could be there. We talked a lot. And then one day my mother told me that an SS man by the name of Tauber had heard of her beautiful voice, and he wanted her to come and live in his quarters and sing for him. I don't know what else. I'm sure he had other things on his mind too, but I don't know. All I heard about was that he wanted her to entertain him. And she refused. And you have to realize what a refusal meant. Perhaps a chance at living, perhaps a chance at least living for a while with better food and cleaner conditions. But she absolutely refused. He noted her number, and on the next transport to the gas chambers, he made sure that she was on that transport. And of course, there was no way of hiding or escaping because she had the number, we all had the numbers tattooed on our arms. So, and he knew the number, and she was taken to transport. I had told the story to my children as they were growing up because I wanted to counteract some of the things that were said about Jews being taken to the, like sheep, to the slaughter, and I wanted to tell them that there was actually a resistance to this kind of, a counteraction to this kind of behavior, and that this is the way a Jewish heroine would live. And throughout the years, Nini has remained a hero to my sons, even when they're grown up. I mean, Nini was the way a person should live. And that was, years later, there was a meeting of all the Holocaust survivors in Jerusalem in 1981. There were not many Greek people there, but someone mentioned that he was from Salonika as we were going into an address by Menachem Begin at the time. And I said, oh, I had friends in Salonika. And he told me, and he said, well, why, if you knew the name? And I said, oh, but I do know the name. I came home and I I got in touch with Federation. Federation got me in touch with the people in Athens. Within a few days, a few weeks, I had an answer from Nini's cousin, who was still in Salonika, was doing a lot of good work for survivors, was doing a lot of good work in reclaiming Jewish property. And as a matter of fact, I met him once a few years later when they visited New York. It was quite an experience to meet with my dead friend's cousin. But when we were visiting in Greece, I didn't want to go to Salonika because I didn't know that Nini's mother had been taken away, and I was afraid of meeting her and telling her how 2 of her children died if she was still alive at the time. So I purposely, of course, Salonika is further north. Most tourists stay in the Athens area and the islands. But I purposely didn't want to go there because I don't think I could have faced the mother. Of course, I didn't realize the mother was gone, but that was my thing with Greek Jews. And they were really great people, very, very nice, warm, sweet people.
It sounds like that's a beautiful memory of a friend you had there.
Yeah.
What was your daily life like in Auschwitz?